How are you? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining another All Hands on Tech with your host, David Neal. We are building, or we're on a journey together to learn how to build a Node.js application that is a real time trivia game. And there's lots of interesting problems to solve. There's challenges along the way. I'm learning some new stuff. I hope you're learning some new stuff along the way too. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and we're getting close to having a functional game. So today we're going to work on some pieces that are like starting the actual game now that folks have joined the game. The required number of people have joined, so we're going to start a countdown timer, which we got started on the last stream, and randomize some questions. We're going to create a dummy set of questions today, I hope, and use that as our starting point for doing a bunch of trivia. Later on, I'll use your suggestions if you have any on what kind of trivia we want to put in this game. And of course, it'll be done in a way that if you want to take the source code for this project and plug in your own trivia questions and run it, you'll be able to do that. Again, my name is David Neal. I am a principal developer advocate for Pluralsight, and my job is to help folks in technology be more awesome. That's my mission. And if there's anything I can do to help you on your journey to learning new technology, to be a programmer, or whatever it is that you may be doing in your career or your future career, let me know. Drop a comment in the chat to let me know where you're coming from. If you've been on any of the previous streams, I'd love to hear if you are returning. And thank you again for joining today. I'm going to try a new feature or something that I haven't tried before, and that is a chat overlay. So I don't think it captures any of the chats that messages that happened before I turned it on. So Hogswort Emo Dragon, thank you again for joining these streams. I'm glad to see that you're returning. Thank you so much for being faithful here recently, and I hope you're getting some value out of these streams. Hope you're learning some stuff. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me. If you are interested in following along and looking at the source code, you want to grab some things from the code, or you want to play around with it locally, or if you want to, add some code yourself and submit maybe a pull request or whatever, you can get the source code. It's there on the screen on my GitHub repository, github.com/reverentgeek/ahot-trivia-game. Mangling my screen name is one of the two best things in my week. Well, I don't know. It looks like Emo Dragon to me. I don't know. Hogswort Emo Dragon. Maybe I'm not breaking that up in the correct way. I hope you don't mind. Thank you so much. Let's see. I'll continue to leave the chat open if anyone else wants to drop in a comment for folks to see and respond to any questions and things. That way, if this is being streamed simultaneously to LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitch and Facebook. So if you're on one of those other platforms, you should be able to comment on the stream, and it'll show up here on the screen for everyone to see. So don't be shy. Let me know where you're coming from and what you're hoping to get out of this stream. So as I mentioned, we are building a Node.js application. We're going to continue using technologies like Fastify, Socket.io for doing real-time WebSocket communications. We're using Vue for front-end stuff, Tailwind CSS to style the front end. Eventually, we'll probably add some other technologies to support things like persistence, some kind of data persistence. We'll discuss things like scaling an application, how we might, what are some architecture things we could do to the application to scale it to handle multiple servers, multiple games, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. What else can we talk about before we dive in? I know, before we get into the code, there was something I wanted to share with y'all this week here on the stream, and I want to talk about the power of the tech community. I had the most incredible honor last week to visit. Was it last week? Man, I'm getting my days mixed up. I think it was the week before that, because it was the week that I did not stream. Anyway, I had an incredible opportunity to visit one of my favorite companies, and that is Sweetwater.com. They are the largest online retailer of music instruments and pro audio gear. Now, you may have noticed I've got some guitars in my studio. There's a couple hanging on the wall. One's it's covered with hats, so you may not be able to see it very well. I've got other guitars on other walls. I've got guitars in cases over here. I've got a workbench where I work on a lot of instruments. So I love geeking out about music and guitar stuff and instruments. And Sweetwater, like I said, is one of my favorite companies. Okay, so I got this opportunity to go and speak at Sweetwater.com. They have a monthly tech skills training program for their engineers called Sweet Geek Speak. And I got to talk to them on one of my favorite topics, and that is leadership skills that I believe everyone should know. Now, this is a long opportunity that started with me meeting one of their employees before they were a Sweetwater employee about 10 years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, where I used to live. And I was helping run the .NET user group in Nashville. And a man named Eric Potter, who was traveling back and forth between Indiana and Nashville to do some consulting for some clients that he had. He started attending some of the meetup meetings, and we got to know each other, and I encouraged him to become a speaker. He started speaking at events, and we kept crossing paths. So when I saw the announcement last year on LinkedIn that he had joined Sweetwater, I was like, man, that is so cool. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. That would be such a cool company to work for. And he reached out to me and said, hey, we're starting this thing. I'd like for you to come speak at Sweetwater. It took us a while to work out the logistics and the timing for everything, but it was such a cool opportunity for me to geek out about the company and get to tour their office, their studio, their retail space, their warehouse. Me and my son spent an entire day at Sweetwater's headquarters in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and just had the best time. So all of that to tell you, get involved in your tech community, in your local community, because you never know where someone that you meet, a connection that you make, may lead to incredible opportunities down the road. Share your knowledge and experience with others, because that will open up even more doors, more opportunities for you to connect with people. I like to tell people all the time, this is we have such an incredible opportunity to impact our world in positive ways through the power of technology. The things that we can do with computers, software, writing code, all those things that we may do as part of our daily job. That stuff is magical for 99% of the world, and we can share that knowledge and experience with others to either spark them to on their journey, or to open up opportunities that we can enjoy of getting to do things like go and speak at your favorite one of your favorite companies. So thank you for letting me ramble about that, and I encourage you to share your knowledge and experience locally in your company, or consider doing things like present at a local meetup, because it can really lead to some amazing things. I have a talk on public speaking without barfing on your shoes. I think there's a few recordings of that floating around, maybe on YouTube. So if you are nervous, and we all are, about the idea of speaking to a group of folks, whether we know them or not. Sometimes it's even harder if we actually know them. It's scary. It's a scary thing to do, and but there's ways that you can overcome some of those fears and get better at being someone who shares and creates goodness for everyone. And public speaking is just one of many ways you can share your knowledge and experience. There's lots of ways to create content. I'm doing one of those right now with streaming. All right, enough about all of that. Let's see. I'm going to switch over to my other screen here, and I'll add myself to the corner so you can, I don't know, does me adding my video camera in the corner, does that add a personal touch? I don't know. If that helps you in any way, let me know. Hi from Algeria. I'm very cool. Thank you for joining the stream. All right. So as I mentioned before, you can get the source code for this repository through through GitHub. If you go to github.com/referent-geek/ahot-trivia-game, you can clone or download the source code for this game that we've built so far. It doesn't do a whole lot yet, but little by little, we're getting there. We're learning some new things. I'm learning new stuff. So last time we were together, we worked on starting the game, creating a countdown timer, and these were naive approaches to building these solutions. So today we'll dive a little bit deeper into fleshing out this countdown timer and the timer for the game itself, because the game will be limited as far as, we could, there's a couple of different ways you could design a game like this. One is you wait until every player has an opportunity to answer all the questions. But the way that I want to design this game is that there's a limited amount of time, and to be a winner, you have to answer as many questions as you can in that amount of time, and answer answer them correctly if possible. I'm getting some alerts that my network connection may not be very stable. I hope that everything's coming through okay. If not, let me know if you're seeing any issues with the stream, depending on which platform you're on. So let's take a look at the game server code. We created this function called do the countdown, and it's very naive. It's using the set timeout function inside JavaScript to start a countdown. The initial countdown is 3 to start the game, and we'll make some improvements to this. Okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself. For those of you who haven't been on one of the previous streams, I've told you a little bit about what the game is designed to do. Let's step back and take a look at a few things. First, I'm going to use npm to check if there are any outdated dependencies. So this is something I like to do on a weekly basis. So according to npm outdated nodemon, there is a patch available. So I'll just run npm update to pull down that latest version. And on that subject of nodemon is an awesome tool for Node.js developers that allows you to launch your application in a development mode, and it's designed to monitor the file system in your project for any changes to like HTML, CSS, JavaScript files, whatever you tell it to monitor. And if you make changes to any of those files, it automatically stops the service and relaunches the service and refreshes any browsers that are connected. Or no, it doesn't do the hot reloading by itself, but it does relaunch the service so that you don't have to be continually stopping and restarting your server. So to start the game, we'll run npm run dev, which is our development script to run this locally, and it'll launch the service. Nodemon is doing the work of running the build step and the start step. And the build step right now is just a step to compile the Tailwind CSS file and make that and put that in our public folder for the game. So with the service running, I'll open up a browser and go to the game, and it's not pretty yet. We do have Tailwind installed, we do have Vue set up, but we haven't done a whole lot yet to make it look pretty. That's another task that we will work on together at some point. So if I click Start Game and I put in my gamer tag. It nothing special yet. It says thanks for joining, waiting for other players to join. I'll open up another tab here, start a new game. I'll just say player 2, and now the countdown starts. After the countdown starts, we get a blank screen because we haven't implemented that part of the game yet, the client or the server. So we got as far as the timer, and now we need to progress further. All right. So the way the application is designed is you have a back-end web server, which is Node.js, and you have a front-end client, which is running Vue and uses Tailwind, CSS, and so forth. So we have some parts of the code that are for the server and some parts of the code that are specifically for the client or the browser. So this the way our project is structured in the source code is we have a source folder that has our server side or our buildable code. So it's our server side views, our server side Node.js code, and our Tailwind files, which are just, sets up some very basic Tailwind stuff. And this gets compiled at build time into that CSS file that the client uses. Under the public folder is where our Vue.js components are. We have a client.js that is like the starting point for the game, for the Vue. And it brings in those other components like the home, join, waiting, and countdown. The next component we'll add is the actual quiz itself. We want to be able to show after the countdown finishes the first quiz question and allow someone to answer that and iterate through that until the game is over. Their time is up. So we have socket.io that we're using to communicate between the client and the server. The client can push messages to the server, and the server can push messages to the client. So such that when the game or when the client connects to the server, it is listening for state changes. And it automatically updates the state, sets some other data properties like the players, the countdown, and just uses those data properties to update the UI for the client. So let's go to the game server where we have our countdown function. And like I said, this is kind of a naive approach to doing this countdown. So I want to flesh this out into something that's a bit more robust. And to do that, I'm going to start with creating a let's say our interval is 1,000 milliseconds. So this is going to be like our granularity of how much we're checking the timer for updates. And we're going to, one thing we need is to know when the game started. We need a specific, or when this particular countdown started, because we're going to reuse this countdown function to do both the starting countdown and the timer for the game. So let's say the game runs for 60 seconds. We want to have somewhere on the screen a visual indicator of how many seconds are left so that folks who are playing the game know how much time they have left before the game is over. So I'm going to set create a variable up higher in scope to keep track of the when the countdown was started. So we'll call it countdown start, and we'll use that in our function to say it is now. So when the game is starting, or when the countdown is starting, we know exactly on the server when that happens. And now let's calculate how many seconds we need to start with. And what I mean is, right now when we start the game, we're setting the countdown to 3. So the 3 is good for the countdown to starting the game. But once the game is started, then we need to have a different value for the game itself. So for now, we'll just hard code some values, but we'll say total seconds equals, and depending on the state, if the state equals to states dot countdown, then the value is 3. Otherwise, the value is 60. Later on, we'll definitely want to make this configurable. Just checking to see if there's any questions in the chat. And again, if anything I'm talking about or that I'm doing, if you have any questions about it, pop them in the chat. I wish I had some kind of notification. Maybe I'll bear with me just a moment. I'm going to make some changes to my notes over here so that I can see my notes and see what's going on in the chat. I think that'll work. So we calculate our total number of seconds. And let's see. Instead of using a set timeout directly, we're going to use a step function that is keeping track of all the slices of time that we're doing. Oh, Aisha asks, how many monitors are you working with over there, David? I've got 2 monitors and a teleprompter, so I need more. I need about 3 or 4 monitors actually to make this work well. That would be amazing. So I'm gonna create a function inside this function, because we can do that in JavaScript. I mean, we don't have to. We could break this function out into the same scope or same level as the countdown method, but I think it's cool that we can define functions within functions, and those functions are only visible to the function that they're inside of. So it's like it doesn't take any arguments. I'm using, arrow function there. And let's see. Depending on inside the step now, we're going to get what's the time right now. This is different from the start time, which is only happens once for every countdown instance. So what's the current time? Let's find what the difference is between right now and the start time. So diff is going to be now minus the countdown start. And now let's calculate how many seconds have passed. So we're going to use seconds passed math.round diff divided by 1,000, because the difference, or this value, it's an integer value in JavaScript. So this whenever you do date.now, it's actually the number of milliseconds since epoch, which is some special date in 1970, I think, January 1st, 1970 at midnight. I think that's right. Yeah. Well, it says it right there on the screen. That's cool. Returns the number of milliseconds elapsed since midnight, January 1st, 1970. Wow, I was right. I was just thinking about that off the top of my head. So when you subtract one date from another that have been defined using the now method, you are left with the number of milliseconds that have passed since those two dates. So dividing them by 1,000 will give us the number of seconds, and we'll round up to the nearest second. So now we have an integer of how many seconds have passed. And if the total amount of seconds that we have that are in our timer minus the number of seconds that have passed since we started, if that's less than 0, then the countdown is finished. Whether that's the 3, 2, 1 countdown for the game start, or the quiz, the trivia game itself. So if that happens, then let's go ahead and say seconds let's have another state value up here of how many seconds are left. So seconds left equals 0. We'll initialize it with that. And then down here, we'll say seconds left equals 0. And if we are, if the state is currently equal to states.countdown, then we need to set the state to state.active. This is what we have down here. So we're saying when the timer runs out, then change the game state to active, which means the trivia game is now running. And if it's otherwise, if it's otherwise, we need to update the what am I trying to what am I trying to say? We need to update the state to game over. I misspelled this. This should be states.active and states.game over. We'll probably refactor some of this code at some point. But for now, let's update whenever we send state to the client. Well, let me just finish out this thought here. So that's if the countdown is finished. If the countdown has not finished, then we need to calculate the seconds left is the total seconds minus the seconds passed. And we need to send that to the client. Okay. And then finally, this will be like a recursive function. Be on the lookout from Pluralsight. We've got some fun videos. I'm kind of maybe I shouldn't mention this, but we've got some cool videos coming out, and one of them is on recursion and other types of looping stuff in computer science. So I'm looking forward to those being published. But this is going to be a recursive function. It's going to continue to call and recall itself until the countdown is finished. So after we send the state, then we need to calculate how much time has passed since the well, we already know we have the diff up here. So let me think. Try to explain this. So even though we tell JavaScript that we want like the final call here at the end of this function is going to be set timeout. And we're going to say set timeout, recall. This is the recursion part. So we need to recall again this step function, and we're going to wait like our interval, right? And that's great. JavaScript will gladly do what we ask it to do. It'll recall this function after another second has passed. Over time, probably not a significant amount for a game that's maybe 60 seconds or 90 seconds or 2 minutes long. But over time, if you take this kind of approach to using a timer, there's going to be what's called some drift in the clock, because this code right here, even though it may execute extremely fast, it may add a few milliseconds over time, and a few milliseconds over time plus another few milliseconds over time. Our approach, our naive approach to doing a countdown timer means that we could drift, the clock could drift, and we could get off by, seconds or something. Not that big a deal in this context of a short-lived game. But it's something to think about, that if you're doing time-based activities and you got some kind of timer in your JavaScript, just be aware that there can be some drift occurring because there's other processing, other things going on. JavaScript may not always call your timeout function exactly 1 second later, or however many milliseconds you tell it, because it's also sharing processing time with other functions, other code. And that's not a problem with JavaScript specifically. That's a computer science problem. That's a computing problem. So it doesn't matter if you were building this in the fastest language possible, you're still going to experience over time drift in that. So to overcome that drift, what we need to figure out is how much time do we need to adjust this next call for drift that has happened. We're going to, and the way we're going to figure that out is we're going to keep track of how many times this step function runs. So we're going to create a variable called step count. We're going to initialize it to 0 every time at the beginning. And every time the step function runs, we're going to increase the step count by 1. So now we can keep track of how many times this function run. And if this function runs 10 times, we know that should be equivalent to 10 seconds. Regardless of how much actual time has passed, 10 seconds is kind of like the standard that we're trying to hit, and that means that is kind of how we can, the value that we need to adjust for drift. So let's do this. I'm going to define a delta, which is the difference between our actual diff, how many seconds have passed since the game started or the countdown started, minus the step count times the number of times our interval. So our interval is 1,000. So if there's been some clock drift, say there's 10,500 milliseconds have passed, whereas 10,000 seconds should have passed, then we know our delta is 500 milliseconds. That's the drift. So our next timeout needs to account for that drift. So the next timeout is going to be our interval minus delta. And let's call this drift. timeout is going to be what the value that we use for the next calculation. So that way, instead of always using what that 1,000 milliseconds, we can start to shift a little bit for that drift. So the next time timeout's called, it might be 975 or 984. It's going to be some kind of, it's going to account for and try to be as accurate to 1 real second as possible. And after all of that is done, we're going to call our step function using the interval for the first time. So here's our step function. We're initializing our countdown start, the total number of seconds that we're counting down, and we're initializing our step count. And then after we define our function for the step function, then we call that step 1 second later. Let's see what else. So we start the game, we send the state. So when all of this happens and we get state.active, we also need to send state. And we need to short circuit the rest of this step function because we don't need to do any of this other stuff. We can even make this a little bit better. Matter of fact, we can further refactor this code to say state is now equal to, if the current state is equal to states.countdown, then it is now equal to states.active. Otherwise, make it equal to states.gameover. And that eliminates this if statement. So update the state and send it. And we could even add the return right here to make it one less line. So just doing some refactoring. So we got our countdown, our much more robust countdown function in place. So now the application's been restarting. Every time I make a change and save that, it is restarting my service. So now if I start a new game, click next, start a new game, call it player 2. That was interesting. It did eventually stop, but we didn't get those live updates to the to that state. So what's going on there? Maybe I didn't update the I think it's because I'm sending countdown as the value. Yeah, that's what it is. Whereas seconds left is what I'm using in the function. So let's eliminate seconds left, which will highlight the code that needs to be fixed, and we'll just say countdown equals 0, or countdown equals total seconds minus seconds passed. Now that is the variable where we're storing the current state, and that's what's getting sent to the client every time send state is being called. So npm runs dev. Let's try this again. Refresh. Start a new game. Player 2. 3, 2, 1, 0. Now the game has started. All right. So that's working as we would expect. And it's not noticeable to you and I, but that countdown timer is now much, much more accurate. A little overkill for what we're doing, but it's a good thing to think about, right? Because I just know from experience dealing with any kind of time calculation stuff that computers will get off unless you're really doing something like this to keep track of the real time that is elapsed. Okay, so we got the next thing we want to do is to actually start the quiz. And we don't have, I've been keeping these streams to an hour. So close the stream here in about 7 or 8 minutes or so. So I'm just going to talk through what I'm going to do on the next stream. And if you have any questions, pop that into the chat there, wherever you are. I'd love to hear from you, hear any feedback that you have. Hope you've learned some stuff today. That is the goal. I'm here to help you be more awesome. And, if learning a little bit of JavaScript will help you be more awesome, that is fantastic. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create, let me just go ahead and commit the code that we have right now. So git status. All we updated was the game server logic. So git commit and we'll just call it a more robust countdown, server side countdown, and push that. So what we're going to do next on the next stream is we're going to add some dummy trivia questions, just as a placeholder to have some mock-up questions. I'm going to design the game so that it's either multiple choice or true false questions, so that the person who's playing the game, all they have to do is click on an answer and get that answer recorded. So we're going to create a JSON file that contains all those questions, the answers, and a flag in each of the of the choices or answers as to is that the correct choice. And when the game starts, when this game state changes, so when it becomes active, we actually need to do something else. We need to initialize the pool of trivia questions that all the players are going to see for that round of the game. And we're going to send that pool of questions down to the client so that the client can manage showing each of those questions. The client, we should not send to the client what the correct answers are, right? Because then that way, if we did that, then somebody who was really clever at setting breakpoints or scripting or whatever could like use that to their advantage and hack the game, right? So we're going to send to the client the pool of questions and choices, and each time the person playing the game answers a question, they'll send a response to the server to say this was the choice that was selected for this question, and the server can decide if they got that question correct, and they'll update their score and update the state for all the clients. So the clients can know at any given time how they're doing compared to everyone that they're playing against, right? So more exciting stuff coming tomorrow, or not tomorrow, no, on the next stream, so that we can really start to play the game. Hope you'll join me again. If you have any questions between now and then, I am Reverend Geek on just about everything. Let me change this caption here. If you want to reach out to me, you can go to that repository. You can grab, you can go to reverendgeek.com or find me on Twitter or Mastodon, Instagram. I'm on all those places as Reverend Geek. So feel free to reach out to me directly and ask any questions. If there's anything I can do to help you, that's what I'm here for. I hope you have a great rest of your day, your week, and I'll see you on the next All Hands on Tech with your host, David Neal. Till next time, see ya.